Monday, August 16th. I am back on the West Coast. Fresh back from 17 or 18 shows in New York. What a great week I had. It was great to get back to New York after 2 years of not being there and it being such a big part of my life right up until the lockdown. It was really strange. It almost kind of seemed like, I don't know, it just seemed like that didn't happen. The putting in the grind, the years in there, and then getting past at the cellar and getting an apartment out there and being bi-coastal and having all these great friends, and all of a sudden, poof, it was just gone. And it seemed like years and years ago until I just stepped onto the subway platform and rode the A train down to West 4th and rolled into the cellar and then walked up to the stand and just started doing my week of shows. It was pretty damn unreal. I got to see a lot of great people. I got to see the great Dove Davidoff, one of my favorites when I was starting out comedy. Just got to talk to that guy all the time on the Comedy Store patio, twisting his ear like, how do you do that? How do you write the jokes? And, of course, one of my great mentors, Keith Robinson, and everybody at the stand in the cellar. And most of all, I want to give a shout out to Kate and Eric McFadden, who let me crash on their couch. And we really had fun, man, just shooting the shit, talking music and New York and old San Francisco days. I had Eric McFadden on a few years ago, and he's an old friend. So it was an all-around kick-ass weekend, topped off by Bill Burr just fucking selling out this monster theater up in Connecticut and crushing it, and he let me be on the show. It was just magic week. I'll tell you, it fucking wore me out. Holy shit. My subway calluses and my frame of mind of running and gunning to spots had definitely melted away. And it took a few days there. I'm not going to lie, there was some serious anxiety going on. I was missing Gertie, and I was kind of just, it was really fucking hot. The humidity was maximum. And I had to watch out. I had to drink a lot of water and keep myself together. But I am home happier than hell. The material was really starting to come together. And just to see some friends and a lot of Del Raisers and Fonzies out there. Some dark Fonzies. I love it. And also, thank you for the support on Patreon. I want to thank all of you on that. Each week, just kicking ass on patreon.com/Dean Delray. Some brand new Patreoners, Matthew Walker, Michael A. Smith, and May. A lot of people have been asking me, where do I get my denim? And I'm going to tell you right now, I get it at Standard and Strange. And these guys are incredible humans out there in Oakland. I get a lot of leather jackets there, boots. I just got an incredible pair of boots at Standard and Strange. And I'm telling you, I've got something special for you guys. This costs you nothing. If you go to the website, standardandstrange.com/Delray, this is very important, standardandstrange.com/Delray, and you sign up and leave your email. They're not going to sell your info or anything. We're going to give away a leather, a Y2 leather. And you've probably seen me wearing one on the Instagram. And we're going to do it live on Instagram September 30th. So do me a favor and sign up on that. You got nothing to lose. And I really want to blow this thing up. I want these guys to be happy that we've come up with this cool little raffle. So standardandstrange.com/Delray for all your denim, your leather, your boots, your Real McCoy needs. all of the best stuff at this store in Oakland. And if you are in the Bay Area, take a drive over there and visit. Tell them I sent you. standardandsstrange.com/Delray. Leave your email. Okay, let's get into the guest right now. I had the long-winded intro because I just had a really fucking good time out there in New York. I love New York and I love LA. I love doing the back and forth. It was my favorite thing to do since I started comedy. Bi-coastal. There's really nothing like it. New York has that gritty, crazy shit going on again like in the 80s. Got to keep your eyes open out there. But it's got that fucking frequency, man. It vibrates at the cooking speed. Here's who's on today. Let me talk a little bit about what's going on here. 1979, I went to see Kiss on the Dynasty tour. I stepped into the building called the Cow Palace in Daly City / San Francisco on Geneva Avenue. It's a giant concrete structure. I love architecture. This building is very strange looking. It is huge. It looks like a big kind of like a horseshoe. It has massive parking lot. There's a drive-in theater at the lot. There's a liquor store across the street. A really radical neighborhood, which added to the craziness and the wild. I walked in, I watched Kiss, and my complete life changed. I went to this building and saw every band there was. I could go through endless amounts of ticket stubs, which I still have, and just read off everybody I saw in there. All right? This was the greatest rock and roll venue in my eyes. Look, we got the Garden, I get it. You got the Forum. But San Francisco had something special. And anybody that grew up in the Bay Area knows, oh, yeah, I don't know, it didn't sound that good, or it didn't matter. This thing, once you got in, was basically the Disneyland of rock and roll. It was unbelievable. And it changed my life. This building, the bands that played in there, the parking lot, everything about it. Riding the bus all the way up Geneva, getting off, coming out. There's no bus. How are we going to get home? Just crazy shit. Parking lot, exact to the one you would see in heavy metal parking lot. Just people getting tanked out in the lot. Fireworks, weed, big bong hits, cranked up stereos coming out of 70s Firebirds. It was pure rock and roll. The Cow Palace means the world to me. The memories I have from that place are absolutely beyond. I can't even tell you. And I think I talked about it a little bit when I did this interview. I was up there doing some shows, some stand-up shows, and the great Andrew Shreve, who runs the place, reached out and said, would you like to come down and take a tour? I said, would I like to take a tour? Are you out of your fucking mind? And I had not been in the room in maybe since Metallica 99 or I don't know. It had been a long time. So I went down there and then he set up an interview with the building boss, the man that ran the building from 88, 9 or so, right? His first gig was Justice for All, Mr. Jeff Ewald. So he sets up an interview with this guy. Me and my buddy Steve McDonald go down there, and me, Steve McDonald, Eric Wettenkamp, and Vince Casey, a couple other guys, we lived in the Cow Palace. I can sit there and just right now on the couch, just go, oh yeah, screaming for vengeance, Back in Black, For Those About to Rock, The Clash of the Titans. I mean, it goes on and on and on and on and on. Van Halen, 1984, Prince, Purple Rain. Fuck, Elvis played in this place. Elvis, the Beatles, Everybody out there has their venue. And the memories these venues give you are priceless. I know right now you're going, yeah, we had the Rothschild room out there in Illinois. The other guy's like, well, dude, we had the Dunk out in Boston. Oh, we had the Sleigh Shed out in Cleveland. These rooms, they're amazing. The rooms are amazing. Look, your memories are the band, but sit and think for a minute. As the Cow Palace opened the doors and you ran through the glass doors down to the front to get right up on the rail, and you sat there as general admission, and you just chilled. This is my spot. And you waited. Then the lights went out. When the lights went out, holy shit, would you lose your mind? The crowd, 16,000, just shh. And then an intro tape, AC/DC, just I mean, come on, dude. I got goosebumps right now on my damn couch. This shit is real. I want you guys to enjoy this episode. I did it for myself, but I know you guys are going to love it. Let's get into it. Let's talk to Jeff Ewald, the building boss of the Cow Palace. Thank you, guys. All right, here we are. This is an insane day for me because I am sitting in the box office of the greatest venue in my eyes of rock and roll in the Bay Area, the Cow Palace. And if you know anything about me and you've heard this show over the years, I've told a million stories about this place, and I could tell a million more. But today, I'm going to sit down with a man that is going to tell a million stories about it also. And we're talking about an iconic building built in what, 1963?
1940, yeah. It was originally it was for the number 1 District Agriculture Association. It was a livestock fair that was happening in downtown San Francisco. And it became wildly popular, and so popular that folks got together and were able to talk the folks with the state of California to creating this very large pavilion to house the livestock. And then they found out that more than livestock, people like rodeo. So that's kind of the whole thing, is it turned into, the Grand National Rodeo and Livestock Show. In history, it was really important for the Cowboys because the last place where they could get points before the NFRs. So it was wildly popular. The other really kind of cool thing is the relationship between the cow and Davis. So a lot of animal husbandry was kind of started here, the whole idea of breeding Pacific pigs, because trichinosis was a thing back then, and to breed the fat literally out of the pork. And so it was really, again, this is way before my time, and, trying to remember this stuff from 20 years ago. But so it really was. I mean, the Sports and Boat Show, massive gig. As we were talking about earlier, the Dog Show, Golden Gate Kennel, largest bench show this side of the Mississippi. And Ringling Brothers, yeah, a very, very old relationship. Madison Square Garden was the first to host the circus indoors, and the Cow Palace was the second, way back in, I believe it was 48, around in there. So it really was a thing.
Introduce yourself.
Oh, I'm sorry. My name's Jeff Ewald. I was the events coordinator here from November of 1988 through, my last rodeo would have been 1999. So that was literally my last gig here, was the Grand National.
Let's get into the history of this place. Of course, the history with me is 1979, Kiss comes through on the Dynasty Tour, and I get tickets. It's my first time seeing a concert in here. Of course, I had been in here years before to see the circus and see the old clown car trick where the car pulled in and 30 clowns came out of it from a hole under the ground or whatever it was.
Now, did you see any of the wrestling?
I was not a wrestling guy.
Okay, yeah. My brother and my dad and I very much into it. The whole in the day at that time. a good friend of mine, Will McCoy, he was one of the local promoters. He goes way back because he and his partner, a guy named Dave Lipschultz, have the Bay Bombers. So when the roller derby was playing in here, so he precedes me in that, but the relationship with the building. And this is kind of wild. My dad in the day bought and sold Fords, and my dad was Ann Cavella's guy because she was in the Continentals. So they had a very personal relationship, and whenever Ann wanted a new Lincoln, got it through my dad.
Did you grow up in the Bay Area?
Yeah, born and raised in Marin. And,
Marin, yeah.
So, in San Rafael.
So you...
I grew up in here. Yeah.
Like myself, we know this venue inside and out.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And the history of it. I mean, the Evel Knievel jump.
Yep.
The Elvis concert, the Kiss playing here in 77, the night Elvis died. Beatles' first show in the U.S. in here, 64?
Yeah. Okay.
64.
Yeah.
Kicked off a tour here.
Right.
The amount of rock and roll that has gone down in this venue is mind-boggling.
Right.
But I don't know if you know this, but I'm wondering. Of course, we know they were doing rodeos here.
Yep.
They were doing this kind of thing, car shows. I wonder what the first concert was in here, because we're talking about a 16,500 capacity standing, and I believe it's like 13,500 seated. So at that time, it would really take a huge act.
Yeah, I think it was either Liberace or it might have been Frank Sinatra. Andrew might be able to pull that up from memory. I mean, that's right about the time.
Here it is. Let's see what it is. Here it is.
Liberace in 1955.
1955.
Right,
Liberace kicks off the live music here.
See, and the thing you also need to remember, the whole art of promotion really wasn't around in the day. I mean, Bill Graham, absolute trailblazer, and he was the one that really kind of got it as far as the relationship with the kids in the music and all of his venues in San Francisco. And then when things got to the point that they could start going into the arenas, my quote unquote box office manager, Bruce E., who recently retired, had a lot of old posters. And one of them was the Doors show. Awesome scale. 650, 550, 450, and 350. You know,
the Doors.
And again, this is, before Ticketmaster, everything was hard stock, and all that. But it was really Bill Graham that was kind of, the guy that saw this. And then the big acts that everyone was like, holy cow, I believe it was like the Eagles. Yeah. And they're the ones, and Zeppelin, they're the ones that were selling out all of these arenas, dragging across the United States. Is the same thing that all the arena guys were getting together, and that's our club at the time was called the International Association of Arena Managers, and it's still around. It's now IAVM, International Association of Venue Managers, because right at that time in the 70s is all about the arenas, but the idea that there were other types of venues, smaller performing arts venues, convention centers, and all of that. So it kind of grew because everyone was looking at it slightly different ways. It wasn't necessarily a ticket, a guest, and a show. So a lot of times it would be, 1 week it would be lawyers and it was carpet in the convention center and be red, and then it would be doctors and it would be blue, Same thing with the performing arts. Back then, a lot of the arena acts were going into the smaller venues. So in the early 80s, I was at the Marin Center. That was my first venue.
Oh, yeah. That's where Peter Frampton did the...
Right, exactly.
Do You Feel Like I Do live record.
Right. Yep. And Hagar Sean, Harrison Shreve.
I saw that. HSAS there. Yep. I was there for that.
And then the Grateful Dead had some A++ shows.
That's right.
In that time. But it was interesting because, again, a lot
Frank
of...
Lloyd Wright.
Yeah. I mean, architecturally.
Yeah.
It was just an amazing... It was really odd because one of the things I ended up doing from time to time was actually doing tours of the building. And I didn't quite get that because I really didn't understand the whole Frank Lloyd Wright thing, but it was really interesting. In my previous building, the Paramount Theater over in Oakland, that's a Tim Pfluger building. I mean, that's a National Historic Landmark.
Beautiful.
First theater in the United States to get that.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, it's staggering.
It's unbelievable.
And that was one of the regular things that I was doing too, was the docent. So I would be doing the tour. But it was a very interesting time in rock and roll because a lot of very big shows were going into the smaller venues. And it was really fun. And then the job announcement for this got to me by my then boss, Jim Farley. And there is a trade magazine called AB Amusement Business, and the Cow Palace was advertising for the show. And he cut it out and put the advert on my desk and literally said, "It's been nice working with you."
Wow.
And I went through the thing. The building is owned and operated by the state, and had my final interview with who will be my boss, Ted Luff, the gentleman right over there on the wall there, and then Michael. And it was really, it was weird for me because it was almost too fun, because we were just talking about the history of the building. And I said a couple of things I didn't intend to, but it really kind of caught them off guard, because I was living in the building with all the rock and roll, and then Shoreline went online.
Yeah.
And then I said, guys, I mean, I know the answer, but I'd like to hear it from you. Once Shoreline went online, you know, I wasn't coming to this building during the summer anymore. I have to imagine that was a huge hit on your bottom line. And they went stone silent and looked at each other. And then Michael said, no one's asked that question.
Yeah. Yeah. So
that was, and then we just went off on that and started talking about, you know, how that was, you know, it used to be, you know, year-round type facility in the day, and then it got very seasonal.
All the shows were here. All of them.
Oh, yeah, it's amazing.
I mean, when I tell people, like from 79 to, you know, I don't know, late 90s, I was in this place all the time.
Right.
I mean, we're looking at the photos right now that are in here. That what's the guy's name that took these?
Hal Randall.
Hal Randall. These photos, this venue, the parking lot, the liquor store across the street, the digital marquee, everything about this place is rock and roll, be old school. Yeah. It is analog like a motherfucker.
Yeah.
There's no more analog than the
Tube amps.
Goosebumps right now. It happens nonstop in this building because the amount of memories I have in this place, they're insane. And to think about probably what I paid for those memories is about $2,000 in ticket money. All the shows, all in. You know, think about it. But when you look at when this room starts to really hit.
Hair band, mid-'80s.
Yeah, and we're talking about Prince, 6 Nights, Purple Rain.
Right.
We're talking about multiple nights of AC/DC, multiple nights of Journey, all that stuff. There's another thing that was going on here, the subculture around the Cow Palace that was really crazy. Counterfeit tickets.
Yep.
Counterfeit shirts. Everything fake going on. There's more scams going in the parking lot. Fake drugs, fake backstage passes, everything.
Right.
There's a whole subculture of money being made on that world too, which was crazy out there, right?
Yeah, yeah.
The parking lot was a fucking madhouse.
My experience was a little bit tamer. I mean, definitely the tailgating was awesome.
It was great.
You know, I had a suitcase of a barbecue. You know, it was orange, and you open it up like a suitcase and take out the grills and, you know, get out the charcoal and light it up, and we'd be doing burgers and beer, you know, and sitting in line because, again, you know, in the day, it was all GA.
Yep.
And you'd come down for the lottery and you get your ticket. You know, that's how they had everyone go away, is you'd come down, get your ticket, go away, then you'd come back, and that's kind of how things were done. The same thing that Andrew and I were talking about with the all GA, that when you're bringing in the guests, they went through locks. So you'd open up an area and there'd be a pipe across the way. They'd fill that up, drop the back of the lock, then open it up. And that was just to kind of govern how the folks got into the venue, so there wasn't a lot of pressure on the search line. So that was just, you know, when it's pouring rain and you're soaked to the skin, it's
terrible.
A pain in the bum.
Yeah.
But it's also part of the experience, you know. But again, things changed a lot, and, you know, reserved shows became more important because everyone, you know, like me, was getting, you know, I'm pushing 60 now.
Yeah.
And, you know, when I was coming to a show, you know, I had a babysitter on the clock and we wanted the GA. The most interesting thing when I was here, the guy that really got it all going was Billy Idol. And his shows were the first ones to have the split, general admission on the floor and reserved seats in the bowl.
Wow.
Never been done before.
Billy Idol?
Billy Idol. He was the one that did it.
I went to that. He had the cane on that tour because he had been run over on the motorcycle.
Yeah.
I was here for that. Yeah.
But that was one of the first, and that became a thing. You know, on my 40th, I was over in Oakland for U2. I was 10 Human Bodies from Bono on the floor. And my friend and my sister and I were laughing our bums off because people were literally standing in front of their reserved seat the entire time. You know, so we're on the floor standing, you know, so much closer to the guys. And all these other folks that had spent a crap ton of money for the privilege of standing in front of their seat. That was really, really wild.
Well, it's just all about, like, this is my spot. I can and go to the bathroom.
Right. Yeah, kind of gentler time.
When I got here, you get here in the afternoon.
Yep.
You're a kid drinking. You could buy liquor in that liquor store across the street with no ID.
Yeah.
It would just be like, oh, no, you just go in there and buy alcohol.
Right.
And then you get tuned up, and then you get in line, and the second the door opened, you ran through the double doors, through the glass doors, all the way to the front, got to the rail, and you're like, this is my spot.
Yeah.
And I'm short now. Back then, I was really short. I had to be on the rail. There was times where I would be in the crowd there, say Judas Priest, Scream for Vengeance, and you're just getting squished, and your feet aren't even on the ground. You're like, I'm not even on the ground right now.
Yeah.
And
there's no AC.
No AC.
So the walls would be sweating.
Oh, it would be sweating.
Yeah.
And then it had this perfect fog of weed smoke and cigarette smoke. Remember that?
Yeah.
Cigarette smoke?
Prior to
so the whole
1991.
thing would be all cigarette smoke in there. And then fireworks going off, people throwing shit. I'll tell you one of the craziest shows I ever saw here. I came down to see a Black Sabbath on the Born Again tour, and that was with Ian Gillan singing, and that's the famous Stonehenge stage and everything. So they only sell like 7,200 tickets.
Yeah.
So all the scalpers are outside, and they're eating it because no one wants tickets. So the scalpers decide to come inside, like, oh, well, fuck it, let's just go in. And this massive fight breaks out on the floor, and a dude just gets stabbed right next to me on the floor of the Cow Palace. I'm like, whoa, and it's really eerie, the Born Again tour, and that was one of the craziest stories I ever saw here. Yeah, it's weird though to see this place with a band half full. 7,000. Like, ooh, that really felt bad in here. It was really rare. I think I only saw it one time.
Yeah, when Motley Crue got back together and with all of them, mid-90s-ish, we sold about 8,000. I was a big fan. And so I was kind of bummed, that sort of thing. But yeah, it's like a lot of shows, you really need 80% plus before people are really making good money. But yeah, it was really amazing. It's just one sellout after another.
Insane.
Yeah, and it was a great time to be in the business, and I've been doing it for a long time, and it's crazy, and it's not Monday through Friday 9 to 5. My brother and sister are in film production, so we all do these wild ass hours.
Yeah,
and it's funny. A guy I went to school with works down at the Dorothy Chandler Pavilion, and they came up for a concert, and we were talking. He goes, "I now understand what you do, and all of our friends don't." Because I got the radio would go off. I'd have to go, talk with something like that. But it's really kind of one of those little odd things. It's really important to the building, to the guests and the artists and all that. So I'm kind of the hub of the job is kind of the hub of the wheel. But it was really strange because I never understood, all the shows that I saw here, never had an idea that you could actually make a decent living with all the behind the scenes stuff.
Yeah.
And I just kind of, I fell into it. My buddy who I was in the movie theaters with, unfortunately, he passed away, John McWhorter. He called me up and had me go over to the Marin Center. And he goes, "You want to work Pablo Cruz?" And I go, "Huh?"
Pablo Cruz.
Yeah.
So funny. I just talked about him 2 days ago.
Yeah. So John brought me in, worked a couple of gigs, and Symphony, Travel Film, Explorama. I'm not sure exactly. That was a long time ago, but at some point they were looking for a new house manager, and so I applied for it and I got the job. Wow. And my mom said, "I think this is going to be you for the rest of your life," and I just loved it.
Wow.
I just the whole mechanics of the in show and out, the anticipation that people are getting in line, and the lights go out and everyone goes ooh, that moment. It's really, and I just love it. And then you turn that into a paid gig. Right, and then all of a sudden, I'm getting paid, and I'm looking at Metallica.
Yeah. So your first gig here is the Justice Tour.
Correct.
And so you get the gig. You're working at the Cow Palace. Right. You're the building guy, as they call it.
Right.
And your first gig is the Justice Tour, which is the greatest Metallica tour in my eyes of all time, right? What is your first throw in? Metallica, like you said, unknown still, glow, like in a way. I mean, they got the video one and they're really starting to take off, but this is really their first arena tour, the Justice Tour.
And I don't want to oversell myself at that point because I hadn't shed my wings, and I was walking around with Ted and I was basically learning, coming from a relatively feminine facility like the Marin Center into the Cow Palace with rock and roll, monster trucks, indoor motocross, these
Evil
massive,
Knievel.
Evil Knievel and all that. It would be several months before, Ted was very happy to see me arrive because then he got to go home. And then I would take care of the show myself and the box office manager, Bruce. But the first show that I actually settled with Bruce was Aerosmith on the Pump Tour. Skid Row was opening up.
Wow.
That was the first time the ink from my hand went onto a check.
So let's get into that real quick. Was there ever a kind of Peter Grant moment with managers back then with you where they'd be like, come on, you're fucking pocketing money and that kind of shit? How'd that go down?
That I never really, a couple of times that happened. One of the things was you would do the estimate. And, so there was rarely any surprises. I know I can't talk well to other venues, but what you're talking about, it's there. But people, especially folks like BGP, they've all been around the block. They've been to the Cow Palace. And a lot of the shows, are within the same ballpark. And what I was doing was, and this was also the time when, computers were becoming personal computers. The box office here ran on a Mac 2 SE for years.
Wow.
And that's when we were moving off of pen and paper for settlements and onto electronic spreadsheets. And the promoters were pushing for, settlement night of. At the Cow Palace, because it's state, you're not allowed, quote unquote, to lose money. So we'd have a line item called contingency. And that was based on last time, couple $1,000s. But we would wait until all the bills were in. And 99% of the time, the contingency would go back. And I got it from, it was Ringling Brothers, actually. And they said, look, we got to, my friend, our client at the time, Eric Cuthbertson, we got to do this electronically. Make this happen. And I go, okay. So I started talking with our COO. And I said, look, why don't we start talking about this? This is what the clients want. And she goes, okay, why don't we start doing some runs with your spreadsheet, and then we'll see what happens. I go, okay. And then all of a sudden, green light. And we settled for the first time, Ringling Brothers show, night of, with a spreadsheet that I helped build, right? Rocket forward several years, I'm in front of a lady named Leslie Stewart who worked for Feld. And she knew I was at the Cow Palace. And she goes, I got a question for you. She goes, at some point, X number of years ago, all of a sudden the Cow Palace started settling their shows electronically night of. What's the story there? And I was just smiling. And she goes, that was you? Yes, sir. Or yes, ma'am. But it was really, and it was really quite the thing. And that's why, again, there are always a little things that sometimes come up, but nothing usually material, and because, again, the estimate, and that's, you get the writer and you flesh out the show, the stagehand, security, ticket takers, ticket sellers, all that stuff that goes into the settlement. And that way there's really no surprises. All the venues, it was a transition period. At the Marin Center, there was really no settlements per se. The act walked with the entire gate, and then the Marin Center would bill them. So an invoice would go out. And that was, so I never really got into settlements until I got here. And it was an important part. I didn't know it. And I was up front at the interview. I said, I understand what it all means. I just never done it because we weren't doing it at the Marin Center.
So you're writing the tour manager the check for the night?
Well, the promoter.
Yeah, I mean, the promoter. So Bill Graham.
Correct.
So so Bill would book a gig here.
Well, yeah, he'd be talking. Yeah, whoever was booking with BGP would be talking to Ted. Right. His title was Rentals and Operations. So he would draw up all the contracts and that stuff, and then we'd do settlement on that desk right there.
Wow,
and then,
right
so
there.
Bruce was here, our box office manager. We did a manual check.
Yeah.
And that's when it was usually whoever the promoter was.
Was Bill here a lot?
A couple of times. I mean, I met him, didn't really do a lot of business interaction with him per se. I talked a lot with his helicopter pilot, Killer, because he would fly into the lower lot.
He would fly into the lower lot here?
Yeah.
Really?
Yep. So Killer would call to find out if we were doing a show downstairs or not, and the lower barns renamed the east buildings, and they've got another name for them now. Lower bays, okay.
Yeah. That's where they do like the
flat shows.
The motorcycle parts
right.
flea markets.
Yeah,
and
the
shit.
Antique shows.
Oh, yeah, I've been in there, the record show. Yeah. So Bill would fly in back there?
Right. So Killer would call me to ask if there's any shows going on, because that's where he'd want to park. Land the helicopter. And it happened a couple of times. Again, I don't want to oversell it. It wasn't a regular thing.
Right.
But I did get some phone calls, let him know what was going on. The first time I actually met him is when we did the concert after Loma Prieta. And we had a really big show here. And I just happened to walk in, and he was talking, he being Bill, was talking with my boss, Ted. And that's when Ted introduced me to Bill. It was a very, very short. We didn't go out for a beer or anything like that.
Yeah.
But I met him, shook his hand.
What are some of once you get up and rolling, some of the specifics, like these bands at that time, it was this competition to have the bigger and bigger and bigger crazy stages.
Right.
What stage do you remember just going like, I can't even believe this stage is in here?
I would say the most interesting one was probably Metallica on the second leg of the Black Album, because that's when that whole set was designed to go inside dasher walls, because most of the arenas were in that mode, and it's very expensive and time consuming to remove the dashers.
So what's the dashers?
That's the wall that circles the ice floor.
Oh yeah,
it's that solid wall that's up to about your
the
stomach,
brick
and then they
wall
have
thing?
So you have that solid, and then you have the plexi.
Right.
The plexi is more or less easy to remove, but it's a thing with the wall itself, because it's bolted into the concrete.
Right.
And it's just a thing, and it's expensive. And it also, you really can't, it's very, very difficult to do one show and another show the next night.
Oh, because you got to put it all back together.
Yeah, you got to put it back together. You got to build the ice, So when we hosted the Sharks for the first couple of seasons, there was a lot of things that we had to come up with that was new for us, like going from a rodeo gig to ice on Wednesday. So 72 hours. So our then lead buildings and grounds gentleman, Bill Mendes, he and his crew would, we would start hosing down the building the last rodeo on the Sunday. Start immediately hosing down the building, bringing out the dirt, starting to pull down the floor, starting to build the ice, and it's a physical thing. I mean, it's made in layers, and all the compressors are going, and you go through and you spray the floor, and then that's
water?
a layer, with water, and then there's a layer where the paint is. That's why it's white, and then the layers where the blue line is, and all the other parts of the floor, and you can't rush it because it's just the physics of doing it. What I found out, what I didn't know, is the machine that spits out the water heats the water, because hot water chills faster and harder. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Now I know that. But it was definitely a thing that we had to go through, And then, of course, the one thing that doesn't go away is that lovely barnyard smell.
Oh,
so
the cow house.
Yeah.
Sometimes you'd come in for a show, and you'd be like, "It smells like cow shit in here, man."
Okay. I prefer barnyard, but
but it's just great though. You're like, there's a smell.
And the time that I absolutely died, we were doing a Comic-Con type of thing.
Yeah.
And Jean-Luc Picard, Patrick Stewart, was here, and it was during a kind of sound check, and he kind of went, was there a barnyard in this, or something? I can't do his accent, but it was just like, ugh.
Yeah.
So we have what we called fairy dust, and it was there's a bit of a perfume, but it helped, knock down the barnyard aroma. But
you would spray that?
Yeah, it was kind of like a powdered soap.
Wow.
And we called it fairy dust.
I just shoot it around the venue?
Yeah, we kind of sprinkle it around.
Oh.
Yeah.
Like a
I don't know the exact, because it was usually done when I was, I'd go home because I have to be back, and we'd have an overnight crew.
You're like Febreze the venue.
Yeah, exactly. That sort of thing, because we did have to try and get rid of, none of the folks, we never smelled it because we're accustomed to it, It's just like any bad smell, you get over it by really taking it in, and then it goes away. But we never really smelled it. First couple of days after the rodeo, you'd smell it, but then it would basically go away. But it really was, when Jean-Luc Picard started making a joke about Barnyard.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's hilarious.
Yeah. And that's another thing that I really miss is the flat shows. And that's one of the amazing things about the buildings is we could be doing an antique show in the lower barns and a motorcycle show in the North Hall and a gun show in the South Hall. At the same time, we're dragging in Judas Priest.
Yeah.
So all of this stuff, going on simultaneously as the flat shows they were normally a 9 to 5 or a 10 to 4 type deal. And we're generally will be done around sound check. And then that would be about the time that sound check would start. So it was kind of good that we weren't blasting the music in the arena when these shows were going on in the North and South Hall. But it was really, and I've really never experienced anything quite like that at the Marin Center. But this was, we're talking a serious amount of people. And, the gun show would sell out the parking lot. It was a wildly popular show. And the antique show, and this is before eBay with the antiques, monstrously popular show. And they were out of Portland. Palmer Wharfs was the company. They now have a Christmas show up there. And it was getting bigger and bigger and bigger to the point that we started bringing people up into the arena. And that was kind of difficult for the guests to make the leap to go from the East buildings where they're very, very accustomed to walking up the ramp. Right. And then getting into the arena. That was always kind of a tough thing for folks to kind of leap through. It wasn't a big enough carrot to get them up. And consequently, a lot of the vendors weren't happy because they weren't getting all of the crowd. Yeah. But it was really fun, just that whole arc of the day, and as one show is spooling up and going, and then, they're building the sets and the stage and they're hanging the sound and the lights and all is going on in the arena. And then those shows would go away, and we'd start doing the maintenance. And then, getting close to doors, sound check would be going on. And then, the line would be down the lot, the parking lot here, and then open the doors and go.
Yeah,
it was fun. It was very interesting learning that ebb and flow of those sorts of stuff. And they were very, very long days. And so my boss, he and I would basically split the day up depending on what the show was. So sometimes I'd come in and cover the inn in the arena and the flat shows, and then he'd roll in around 2-3 o'clock. I'm not really a morning person, but he preferred the evenings. And then, he just wouldn't show up and goes, it's all you. And I go, okay, so 6 in the morning to 1-2 o'clock in the morning. And, we'd have janitors overnight that would be cleaning up for the next day or, the next morning if we didn't have a show. But as we were talking about earlier, when you get into the Grand National in the day, the building was 24/7 for 2 weeks.
That's crazy.
I had all of the public shows and then the after hours, which were called the slack. So that was kind of, where people were kind of going on the brace, where the preliminaries for what would be the finals in front of the guests, and it would be the last weekend of the rodeo. That's where all the finals would take place, and the buck and ball on that second Saturday.
It's crazy to think that, my dream is to do a comedy rock show in here. I want to do the Bon Scott tribute and maybe get Metallica involved. But it's awesome to think about Metallica, how just a year ago they rehearsed in here for the symphony shows over at the Chase Center.
Right.
Their history in there is a lot like you and I, except they slowly became famous in a big band, but they never forgot this fucking venue.
Yeah, that's so
here
cool.
They are rehearsing in here with the symphony for a week. And I just looked at the kind of quote unquote a little bit of the figures on what it would cost to do a show in here. Those rehearsals had to cost them $1 zillion, to be in here.
Yeah, unfortunately that was not my time.
Right. Yeah, I'm just saying though, it's amazing how that band is like, well, let's do it. It's where we can do it, and it's great, and it's a history there, but it is really incredible what this venue is, and it's really sad to me that there's not rock shows in here. Look, I do love new venues, but I'm also in that Bruce Springsteen frame of mind. Like Bruce loves the old ones. Right. Where he says no. I remember seeing him at L.A. Coliseum there about 5 years ago before they tore it down. But he was like, no private boxes. No neons and sponsors and all that. And there is a thing to that. As I look at that photo right there of 75 Stones on the Black and Blue tour, it's just pure analog rock and roll right there.
Yep.
That's a sound flown above the band with some lighting rigs and the audience in there. That's it, man. We're here, and there's going to be some rock.
Right. Well, I think we were lucky. I mean, it was a certain place and a certain time. You know, my kids really enjoy music. They grew up in the building too, and it was just a time, you know, and the old school GA style shows, which this venue plays to, long, deep suit because of the floor, because it was built for rodeo, so it's oval and not round like for hockey or for basketball. So you're maximizing reserved seats and not getting a space on a floor, you know, and that's the thing. While the venue in the day was so popular, was because of the GA capacity.
A lot of ticket revenue.
Yeah.
A lot of ticket revenue.
And so when you're, you know, when ours was in the day, it was 14.5. So you'd go over to an arena that was basketball or hockey, and their GA was more like 11.
Yeah, like Arco.
Yeah.
That held like, you know, Arco's round and small and everything. And even Oakland Coliseum, where a lot of times the Cowpals would be booked, you know, 2 nights here, and then they'd have to go over there because there was something else, which was always weird. Like if you look at the Back in Black tour, which I had no idea as a kid, which really blows my mind, but you know, they did one night here, and then they did Henry J. Kaiser, and they did a Santa Cruz show. And I'm like, wait a minute, Back in Black tour, Santa Cruz, you know, something like that. So that's pretty wild to think about how, you know, bands were starting to get so big that massive floor space was vital, because then they wouldn't have to be there multiple nights. If they didn't have to be, you know, if a band could do 16,000, but it only held 11,000, they're leaving a lot of money on the table. Right. And then they could do 2 nights, but then it would be at a smaller venue like Henry J. Kaiser. Right. I mean, being a building guy, I love 2-day shows, you know, because, you know, it makes far more civilized day. You know, because you're walking away after the show, you're not doing the strike. Everyone's coming back fresh. You know, sometimes there might be a rehearsal, so the callback would say be 2 o'clock. And then we'd go dark 6 to 7, doors at 7, shows at 8, and then do the out. But yeah, I think also a lot of people we got older, and we had babysitters on the clock. So you couldn't get here at noon, you know, in front of a 7 o'clock door. Yeah. You know, you could do that when you're 18 years old, 19 years old. But once you got kids in the mix, you know, you want that reserved seat. You want to show up in time to get a beer, and that's about it. You know, so you know, your babysitter person comes on over, you kiss the kids, be good, and then you go to the show. Yeah. You know, like when my daughter was born, the first show that my then wife and I saw was Lyle Lovett over at the Greek Theater, and it was the first time we'd been away from McKenna, and my wife Margaret was not in a happy way at all. So you know, my sister was babysitting, and you know, we called. And pre-cell phone.
Yeah.
I go over the payphone.
Exactly.
Hey, I'm in the fucking lobby.
Yeah. And it went to the voicemail machine, and Margaret panicked. I go, she's probably just putting her down because, you know, it's a bit of a thing. And winding the kids down, doing the bedtime stories and all that sort of stuff. And then so we called again, and in fact, you know, Lisa was putting down my daughter, you know, so, but yeah, people just, we've all gotten a little bit older. I mean, you know, I enjoy GA. I don't think I'd get here necessarily at 1 o'clock in the afternoon for the doors. Of course. And I would, you know, same thing at the Fillmore, you know, I don't mind hanging out by the soundboard in the back there, you know, for some shows, you know, I've been to shows like Robin Trower, and I put my beer on the stage. I'm inside the PA, so I'm hearing the show through his amps on stage. Right. That put a smile on my face. And, you know, the first time I took my son to see Trower at the Fillmore, and that was an experience for him. You know, the whole gambit, the smoke, the ladies, the minor scuffle, you know, beer being spilled on you, the whole thing. You know, we get into the car, and Colin goes, Dad, what's that smell? And I go, the Fillmore. Yeah. You know? But he'll never forget that. Oh, absolutely not. That's like me. Absolutely Kiss not. 79. Yeah. I know everything about the show, you know? It's like, you know, Ace shooting the lasers out of his guitar, and Paul flying, or Gene flying up to the top and all that. The venue, this place is just unreal, man. And we just walked through it. Remember when it was tan? Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it was tan. When
Yeah.
did they paint it? Do you know? That must have taken gallons.
Yeah, it was my memory on that. It was in the early 90s, probably more towards the mid when we went from the tan and the orange and the brown to the grays and the maroon.
Well, who made this choice on that? You know?
That I don't know. I assumed that was a board thing.
Right. It looked cool tan.
Yeah. I kind of like the old school.
I do too.
But we needed to, you need to modernize a little bit.
Yeah.
And the building, I think, for a lot of folks is a little strange, and they don't understand the history. Got into a little thing with a guest who had more than 5 beers, and she goes, well, why are you talking to me and all this, and she goes, oh, you work for Bill Graham? I go, no, I work for the Cow House.
Yeah.
I work for the state. She goes, no, you don't. I go, I do, ma'am. You want to see my business card?
Yeah.
She goes, you're too stupid. You don't understand who you work for. I go,
Wow.
well, okay.
Wow,
And
Karen back then. You had a Karen,
back then.
early Karen.
Yeah.
EK.
Yeah, and that's when those skills started coming on. Is you would have to deal with some folks that had a little bit too much.
Yeah.
And at the Marin Center, it was mostly my high level of BS. Please don't make me call security, for they will not be as nice as I have been. So let's enjoy the show. Okay?
Did you ever have any kind of mass sneak-ins? Because I've been involved in some good charge through the doors.
Yeah.
Like no ticket, let's do it, gone.
Yeah. No, I mean, in history, basically a lot of times, like up the ramps, guards would be bribed.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So, but as far as a mask run, not really when I was here. People, there are folks that are hell-bent on getting in. A sold-out show is a lot of impetus for folks, and guards would be bribed. And as you said, there was, in the day before electronic ticketing, I have a lot of fake tickets from the Marin Center days, especially around the Grateful Dead. I have full sets.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
From confiscated?
Oh, yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Whoa, what do those look like?
They're really good. They're really good. They started, in the day, they would be the hard stock, and then the Dead, to make it a more secure ticket, would add things like glitter.
Yeah.
And then there'd be bumps in it, very things that would be more difficult to print. Sure, you could print the ticket, but you couldn't put in the glitter,
right.
Or the bumps along the way.
Right.
Or the sandwich. When you tore the ticket, there was a sandwich, like a slice of red paper.
Yeah.
So when you tore the stub, you could see the red. So those were different things. You also had all the little dots where you had the red, the little piece of film, I can't remember what it's called, but you'd show that over the Bay Area, the Bass logo, and then all the little red stars would go away, and then you could read Bass or that sort of thing. Again, it was just things, and then the ticketing came, and then and now it's all on your phone. I mean, the hard stock is definitely going to go away.
Yeah.
Just because everyone wants a more secure ticket, and everyone has a phone, and it's just going to be a matter of time before the whole thing just goes over to phones and ticketless.
Now, Andrew. Andrew's here who's been a goddamn saint in setting this tour up. He put my name on the marquee. I just lost my mind out there. I pull up because that's the thing you see. You're coming down Geneva, and you would see AC/DC tonight, 8 p.m. with Nantucket. And you're like, Nantucket? Oh, there's the tan photo. Oh,
Awesome.
Beautiful. It makes it so kind of Art Deco. Now, who was the last concert in here live? Do you know?
That was after my time.
Yeah, right. So, like, U2 was a parking lot show, but inside the venue, do you know? Because it's like, there hasn't been a concert in here in years. It needs to be dusted off.
Yeah.
I mean, of all people, I should do it. It's me with Metallica guys. We're tearing it up, the old school. Well, listen, I can't thank you enough for coming down and talking to me and getting this incredible tour. I'm looking at these photos that hung in the hallways that every year I'd come and look at new photos. We just walked the venue. It gave me chills to be in this place. I snuck in it a couple years ago, but it was dark, and it wasn't the same as just being able to free float around here and to go backstage where I used to sneak in with the empty guitar case. That was one of the greatest.
That's good.
Later, after the empty guitar case, I went to, you'd buy the cassette, the band cassette, and you'd cut the cassette cover off and you just laminate it and just walk right in.
Okay.
That one worked through the front here.
Wow.
Because you'd be like, oh, we're just out front. And the security would be like, oh, okay, yeah, they're with the band. And you just go in. Man, that shit worked. I got the Billy Squier one still.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I was here for that. Yeah.
Yeah. Billy Squier, dude.
Yeah.
It's funny to think about some of the bands that sold this place out, like Night Ranger or Billy Squier, or these bands that, you know. Queensryche, yeah. 16-5, Queensryche.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, it's like, that is some big numbers for bands of that level, you know?
Yeah. And when a lot of the, you know, the Limp Bizkits of the world and those guys, Linkin Park and those tours that were put together.
Deftones and stuff.
Yeah. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
One thing that was really cool is when the San Francisco Flower and Garden show outgrew their venue, they were one of the peers, and the guy, it took him a year, and he had a lot of convincing on his side of things because those folks were thinking Cow Palace, you know, and it was awesome. It was really amazing. Setting up that show and all the dirt that came, or I get earth would be a better word, but, you know, and setting up all of the scenery and the plants and the aroma of the place. It was awesome. It was so much fun. And again, that photo over there of Ted and Billy Graham, when we did that big outdoor thing, it was in the arena. We had environments in the North Hall, the South Hall, screens outside in the parking lot. Unbelievable. I'd never seen anything like that.
Wow.
And it was a lot of fun. Yeah.
It's amazing to look at that Elvis Presley autograph right there. I mean, we are in the box office, and there are autographs in here that'll blow your mind. Elvis Presley, Evel Knievel, Kirk Hammett, James Hetfield, Jerry Rice. We got fucking Rocky Marciano.
Yeah.
I mean, it is endless in here. Nancy Kerrigan. It's just, I mean, it's everything on this wall. And then the great Bill Graham.
Yep.
It's so amazing. And Smokey Robinson, The Miracles. Look at that, 72.
Yeah.
The place means the world to me. And I'm glad I didn't grow up in some small town where they just didn't have concerts. You know, there's those cities, the flyovers that the bands didn't go to.
Right.
And if you didn't live in a city like LA or New York or Florida or San Fran where they had these big venues, you didn't get to see this stuff every couple weeks. Like, I mean, you'd open that Pink section and there it is.
Yeah.
BGP presents every Sunday.
Yeah.
Bam! You go, holy shit. Look at this, Priest is coming to the Cow Palace.
Yeah.
And you run down to the Bass Outlet at Record Factory in Marin on Francisco Boulevard, and you get your ticket, and then you fucking got it. I got the ticket. I can't. And then the day comes, you get out of school, and your buddies, whoever's got the Firebird with the fucking 8-track, and you drive down here, and you park. Who got the parking money? Was it the building?
Building, yeah.
Woo! Man.
That's one of the things, you know, as far as the building goes in revenue streams. It's wildly important to the building because it's just not done like this anymore unless you're around a venue that's around a fairgrounds. Then you have the big lots. But in the day, it's a little bit smaller now because of other things they have going on. But it's 4,000 spots.
4,000 spots?
4,000 spots at $8 a spot.
Wow.
You know, and it would have been, and so that was, 15 now. Well, you know, it's
15 to park now? That's still cheap.
Yeah.
What are you laughing about that? I'm like, man, 15 to park here.
Right.
See ya, thank you.
But that was one of the things, I mean, we in negotiating with folks, you know, and someone's coming in with a show that might be a little on the lighter side and not a guaranteed sellout. So, you know, Ted would be able to work the numbers with the idea that we'd have parking.
Right.
You know.
Concessions, though, also? Did you own that?
No. It's always been, well, at least when I was here, it was a third party. When I left, it was Service America Corporation. And now it's Center Plate.
So they would rent the building for their hot dogs and beers and everything?
Right, and the building would get a cut of it.
Right.
Also.
You know, and the building gets a cut of the merch, right?
Right.
Man.
Yep.
Oh, so many hands in the band's pockets.
Oh, yeah. Well, you know.
So many hands.
Like we were talking about, again, with the whole thing when Bon Jovi went big, you know, that the per cap, no one had seen anything like that. All those young ladies had to have that T-shirt. And
at the time, that was the most merch you seen?
Yeah. Yeah, I just know that shift, that was just before my time. But in talking with the merch manager and other people who had been around in the day, they, in my mind, when talking about it, they were the ones that the merch was just crazy, just absolutely crazy.
Wow.
Because it was almost like everyone was walking out with a shirt.
What about some of the crazy shit before we get out of here? Like the insurance, I wonder what it was like. Like, David Lee Roth and Kiss and these guys, David Lee Roth flew over the Cow Palace on a surfboard. He's just on this surfboard going on. I mean, one wrong move and people are dead, and it's like, it is crazy to think about, rockets and cannons and fucking fire and flying. It's wild. Well, Evel Knievel jumping and crashing.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's there's insurance.
Of course.
And the promoter typically is the one that brings in the insurance. The building obviously has their own insurance also.
But this is perfect because the ceiling was so high. They could do anything they wanted here.
Or Tommy Lee and his whole drum kit.
Yeah, that thing.
That was wild, and it would push out over.
Yeah.
And then, when they started doing the thrusts, all of a sudden those started showing up, and they'd go all the way halfway down into it.
Yeah.
We did AC/DC one time, and I'm trying to remember the tour, mid-'90s. And
Razor's Edge, probably.
Probably Razor's Edge. And so I had to drive one of our golf carts backstage to pick up Angus and one of his handlers, bring him around. We went in through security because he was going onto a lift that was bottom lit.
That went up. Yeah, remember that? That was great. With the cannons of confetti.
Yeah, the confetti.
Rad.
Yeah. So that was wild. That was the first time for me.
Yeah.
And, so he came down and they just buried him in all these towels and kind of placed him in the seat. And then I zipped on backstage. So that was kind of fun.
Well, there'd be also the tricks where bands would get in road cases. So they would just roll the road case through the audience. You wouldn't even know. Then the band would pop out and they'd be on the backstage if they had a second stage.
Right. Never. That's a good one.
Any comedy in here ever?
Not
that's weird, right?
Yeah, even in the day when you have Steve Martin, and when he was doing arenas, I don't think
like Eddie Murphy or somebody. I wonder. Wow.
So, I don't know where. I'm sure those guys came through town, but I'm not sure where. It might have been over in because if Oakland, they're looking, it might have been over in Oakland because if you're looking for a larger reserve capacity, that would be my guess. And this would have been before the Shark Tank. But the large scale comedy,
wild.
Not that I can remember, at least during my time here.
Yeah.
And again, maybe in this when Steve Martin went big and he was selling out arenas. But again, I was too young.
All right, everybody, listen. Follow the Cow Palace on the Instagram. It is an incredible. Are you running the Instagram? It's an incredible Instagram. And the history of this place. And whatever venue you saw concerts in, you understand what it means to you. And that's what this place means to me, times 1,000. And I can't thank you enough.
Oh, my pleasure. This was fun.
It was
a trip down memory lane for me. The best thing is like your guys' reaction walking through the glass doors into the arena floor.
Oh.
It's Kid in the Candy Store type stuff. Santa Claus type stuff.
There's nothing like that, man.
And I really do appreciate that. We all love building people. There are folks that really understand the whole thing, and the history and that sort of thing. All those guys from Feld Entertainment, those guys absolutely love the venue, and they're venue guys and gals, and they just love it. I think that's one of the fun thing about the people that I have worked with. We all really like what we do, and it's not about the hours, and it's not that glamorous, but it's a hell of a lot of fun, And it's just really fun working with folks like that. And again, those doors open in the smiles.
It's so great.
Ocean of smiles.
It's nuts. It's nuts.
Yeah.
I remember Randy Rhodes. The last time Randy Rhodes played in the Bay Area, it was Diary of a Madman tour. And Ozzy had this mechanical hand, and on the encore, it broke. And couldn't happen. They didn't play the encore, so we got robbed on. We got like a 10-song set. It was like, but all those kind of memories hit me nonstop, and they really helped me over my lifetime of when I'm interviewing people. that have been on my show, like Rob Halford, and I talked to him about the Cow Palace, or Rudy Sarzo. Hey, what happened that night? Oh, the hand broke, and this. These people have these great memories. That Ronnie Lane Arms concert right there, where you had Jimmy Page and Ronnie Lane and Clapton all on the stage at the same time with Jeff Beck. It's unreal.
Yeah.
Just the shit in here, these Dio photos. I mean, it's nuts, man. And it was just an honor to do this podcast in here today.
Yeah. And your memory on this stuff is amazing. I mean, I was at a lot of the gigs that you're talking about.
It comes and goes. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
When I get in here, it joggles. And then when I leave, I go, oh, I should have talked about this. Oh, but it is... It's unreal, man. I mean, think about the Doors and the Beatles and Elvis and everybody played in here, man.
Yeah.
Everybody played in here. Beatles, 64 played here, start of the U.S. tour. Then in 66, they play their last concert ever, other than the rooftop, at Candlestick.
Right.
Which is insane. The Beatles start in San Fran and they end in San Fran, which is crazy.
Yeah, and just the screaming from all the gals.
Oh,
I mean,
man.
it's deafening.
Yeah.
Deafening. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much.
You're most
guys.
welcome. This was fun.
Thank you for tuning in, everybody, to another episode of Let There Be Talk, coming to you live from the Cow Palace box office, where many times I walked up and said, I'm on the list, and they said, no, you're not. See ya.